Everybody, and welcome back to Tenza Motorsports. Today we have back with us our 986 Boxster, and today we are doing a really exciting project. We're going to be doing our intake version 2.0. This is our homemade intake systems, where the ones for the Porsches are like 800 is like the cheapest ones, and they can go up into the $2,000 price range pretty quickly. And where this is just a race car, we're not super picky on how it all comes together. Right now, we have just a bunch of random pieces from the scrap pile in my garage. It ends up being basically a 3-inch intake. And today, courtesy of Maxpeedingrod, we are gonna be doing an intake using some charge piping. So obviously this right here is a charge piping kit for a turbo system, but you can obviously use that in reverse. Your intake is gonna run vacuum, and where we're gonna be cutting the tubing and stuff like that, depending on how much we cut. We don't have to worry about us ruining the beveled edges, because turbo systems produce way more PSI in the positive pressure, where the intake is gonna be negative. So we're really excited to get that done. Before we get into today's content, make sure you are subscribed to the channel, like if you enjoy this type of content. Also make sure to check us on Instagram, Tenza_Motorsports, where we do giveaways. Right now we're doing 2 E46 M3 steering wheels. Pretty excited to get those announced. We should be doing that here relatively soon. So yeah, let's get back into this kit. I'll show you what's on the car right now. We'll show you the plan, and then we'll be putting this together. Here is our custom air intake. It's kind of hard to see down in there, but there's a lot of BMW parts in there, and there's a lot of just random pieces because we built this out of scrap in the garage. So this takes like a 45-degree turn, and then it actually comes out here to the outside of the car, and just behind the vent you can see the intake, a true cold air intake, very far away from the engine. Now we're going to be replicating this whole thing by putting the Maxpeedingrod charge piping kit. It is a 3-inch kit. I'll have the link to that kit and everything else that we use today down in the description below. And I'll have the discount code here on screen and in the description and in the comments. And then we're actually gonna be coming all the way over here to the mass airflow sensor, and we're gonna be, this obviously has to stay, and then we're gonna be replacing all the way up to the throttle body. We should be able to recreate this and have it be a little bit more smooth. Right now we've got a bunch of different transitions, and I can't imagine that the air is staying very smooth inside this intake. This kit right here retails for under $200, and if you're willing to go through and build your own intake, I think that's way worth it instead of spending $800 to essentially build what we're doing here. The only difference between an aftermarket intake and ours is most of the time they give you a heat shield, because your intake's gonna sit about right here, and then they'll give you a heat shield. We didn't wanna do that. We want a true cold air intake. We want it to be out here next to the vent. We want that air to be outside the engine bay, not pulling from inside the engine bay with a heat shield. So let's get this pulled apart and see if we can't build a new one. So this is what we've decided to go with. Now, we were gonna try to do the 45 right here, but unfortunately it just wasn't quite the same angle as what we had on it originally. And yeah, actually you can see here that this isn't quite 45, but it's not quite 90. So we went with the 90 here, and then we went with, basically made it straight here, another 90 straight, and then a 90 again. We did have to modify that end just to give us a little bit of flex, because it didn't quite need a 90 on that side. It was a little bit too much. The only other downside to this is that this filter right here is actually a 3.5-inch filter. And so we're actually using this as a step up size. So I think this is a 3.5 to 3-inch. And so you just put the coupler right there, and then it'll cinch down on the coupler. So far, it's been a really nice kit. It's actually holding up to scratches really well. So you can see some scratches here. That was literally us standing on it out on the concrete while we trimmed it down. We did have to trim down this end right here. Took about 3.5 inches off of that. And then we took like about 4 or 5 inches off of this one. Nothing super crazy. We would have liked to have, like, if this came in like a black and a red, that would have been better, but we're not complaining with the blue. It's in the engine bay. Not a lot of people are going to see it. And we're just happy that we can build an intake system for, you know, even with the filter, you're well under $250. And the cheapest ones to buy, like I said, were probably close to $1,000. So let's go get this installed. We'll get the car started up and get to listen to that. So here it is. We are completely in. We've actually measured our distance between the vent and the intake, and so now we are able to clip the vent in. We're actually going to start the car and then we'll get to listen to it before we put everything back together. But if you come over here, looking in the engine bay, this is what it ends up looking like. Pretty clean. Everything clamps together really nicely. The intake does need a little bit of support, so we're going to figure out something on that. It's nothing too crazy. We'll probably find a way to zip tie it up or something like that so it's not just flying around while we're going around the track. So now we're going to start the car. Okay. So yeah, we're super happy with this. I really appreciate everybody so much for watching. This car is gonna have a lot of custom projects like this where we do not have the money to spend $1,000 on some replacement piping. If you look at how this is set up, the expensive ones are set up very similar without us, just basically ours is just missing a heat shield, and it doesn't actually replace as much as we just did right there. So there's actually more airflow, and we're just really excited about this. Stay tuned, lots to come. We're doing a toggle switch panel on the car. That's coming up very soon. We appreciate everybody so much for watching. Everything that we use today will be linked in the description below as always, and we'll see you in the next video.
Bam!